Tutorial, and in this tutorial we're going to talk about application architecture for your application. Not only for your application, I'm going to define a standard architecture that is being implemented both for iOS and Android. So we're going to pretty much understand the application architecture, but we will be understanding in the context of cross-platform mobile application development. So we will be historically understanding what were the different application software architectures that were implemented from the historical, starting from the 1980s. Yes, like the application architecture started, okay, for software development. And then we're gonna try to understand the concept, and we will try to implement it in our applications. You can actually implement this application architecture concept both for the cross platform or for the single platform mobile application development. And also, obviously, why I'm talking about this application architecture is because it's application architecture is a very important concept. If you are a beginner, then I would really suggest you to start learning about this thing, because it is like okay, let's think. For example, if you are going to build a building, obviously, or a tower, anything if you are trying to build up, like, you just don't stack them together, right? Like, obviously you need to make some plans. Obviously you need to call your engineer, and you need to the engineer should make some plan carefully, make sure that the buildings are stable and long lasting, and the same thing goes also for your software. So that's why, understanding, analyzing, and understanding your app architecture is a very important concept, guys. So that's why this tutorial is going to cover you all the concept regarding this thing. So I would suggest you that you will follow it. This is my blog that I have written. You just can go through my blog, where I have explained it in detail about the application architecture that you can use for not only for the single platform mobile application development. You can use it for both for iOS and Android. That is a cross-platform mobile application development. Okay, so as I told you, like a software architecture is like a kind of a blueprint, right? For your application, and it has been around since like 1980s. So one important part of its design pattern, which are like tried and true templates for building software. So right, so you might have heard of some of these patterns like clean architecture, MVVM, MVC, or MVP. Okay, MVVM stands for model view model, whereas MVC stands for model view controller, and MVP stands for model view presenter. Okay, and yeah, we will be talking, we will be understanding each and every concept here. Okay, so with the obviously my concept is also for cross platform. So with Kotlin multi-platform, you can choose this design patterns that fits your application best. So also you can use this architecture pattern in Kotlin multi-platform mobile application development. Okay, so you can so if you are used to MVC, you can use MVC. If you are used to MVVM, you can use to MVVM. So as you know that for iOS development, MVC used to be very famous. They used to use MVC, but Kotlin multi-platform also supports the MVVM. Okay, so as recommended by Google for Android, right? So that's not a problem. So in simple terms, think of a software architecture and design pattern as a smart planning and blueprint that helps you build a sturdy and scalable app, just like the architects and engineers do when creating their buildings, right? So this is the concept. So the first architecture concept is called model view controller. Okay, so this model view controller pattern has been around since like 1970s. Okay, so it is commonly so you can see this this model view controller diagram. Okay, so this has been around from as I told you, this has been around since like 1970s, and is commonly used in desktop and web application. Apple usually popularized it in the mobile world when they introduced the iPhone SDK in 2008. Okay, so in MVC, your code is divided into three parts, as you can see in the diagram. Like, the first is the model. So this is the brain of your application. It doesn't care about how things look. Okay, so it handles all the logic and rules it's where the data and operations on the data live. Okay, so the second one is called the view. So this is the what you see in the screen, this is all the view that you see in the screen, like a list, button, images, image views, so many things like that, all that you see are able to see in the screen. So how it looks and behaves depends on the platform. Okay, so like for example, if you are using iOS, you have iOS UI, and whereas for Android you have the Android version of the UI, right? And the tools you use, UIKit or Swift for iOS, Swift UI or UIKit for iOS, and for the views, as you know, we use like the standard view or Jetpack Compose for Android, right? And finally you have this controller. So this controller, think of it as a middle person. It takes the input from you, like tapping a button, and tells the model what to do with the input, and then updates the view to show any changes. Okay, so it's like the messenger between model and view. So in a simple terms, MVC divides your app into three parts: model, logic and data, view, what you see, and controller, the go between, so it's a way to keep your code organized and easy to work with, especially for building user interactions. So this is the model, view, controller architecture pattern. So if you feel like your application is good with this architecture pattern, you can use this architecture pattern. Okay, so that's the first concept. And now let's jump to the another concept, which is called MVVM. So this is the diagram of MVVM. MVVM stands for model, view, view model. Okay, so model, view, view model is a model, is a very modern design pattern for building application which uses interfaces like those on your phone or computer. So it is especially popular in Android and iOS development. Here's a simple I have the diagram, as you can see here. Is a very simple diagram. It's going linearly in like the flow, not like, as you can see the difference here with the model, view, controller, you have just like all kind of a loop, flow, but here we have a linear flow. Like the model doesn't have any access over the models, and view doesn't have access over the models, right? And models doesn't have direct access with the view, whereas only the view model is being has access to both the view and model, right? So this is the concept here. And the first thing is obviously the model. So what is a model? Here in the concept, in the architecture pattern of MVVM. So model in this concept, in this architecture pattern, this is like a brain or of the app, just like the MVC. So it holds the data and rules, like what's in your app and how it should behave, right? And finally, so also you have the second one is the view. So view is what you see on the screen, just like your MVC, like buttons and text is similar to the view in MVC, as I told you. So but in MVVM, the view also talks to the view model. So it talks to the view model. So finally this view model, this is the new part of in MVVM. Okay, so it's like a bridge between your model and the view. As I see here, it's like a linear flow, and this is acting as a bridge between your view and models, right? So it holds the data. This view model holds the data that the view needs and provides a way the view to update itself when the data changes. So this is done using something called data binding, as you can see in the diagram. So for example, when you press a button on the screen, the view tells the view model about it. The view model then talks to the model to make changes, and when the data in the model changes, it automatically updates the view. So right, so it's like a kind of magic. So in Android, they use things like live data, Kotlin flow or state flow to make the communication between view model and the view. So it's really smooth. Okay, and in iOS they have the combined framework and Swift UI to do similar things. So MVVM is a very modern approach. It is used both in iOS and Android, so we can also use it the similar pattern also in the cross-platform, like Kotlin multi-platform mobile cross-platform application development. Okay, so this is the suggested suggested architecture pattern, and the recent architecture pattern that is used heavily, okay, in the application development. So this is the concept. And finally, there is also another concept which is called clean architecture. Okay, so you can see the clean architecture diagram here. It seems like it's really complex. Looking the diagram, you see that it's very complex, but it's very popular among professionals for building the large and maintainable software application. Okay, so it's like a very professional architecture pattern, which is usually used by professionals. And clean architecture is designed, this design pattern was introduced by Robert C. Martin, who is also known as Uncle Bob, in 2012. And this is the diagram, as you can see here. And the main idea of this this clean architecture is to organize your code into circles or layers, each with a specific purpose. So following the two important principles. So first principle is called abstraction principle. This says that the inner class should contain the core business logic, while the outer class handles implementation detail. So the closer you are to the center, the more abstract and independent of a specific platform your code becomes. Okay, so we have this also another one, it's called dependency rule. And the second principle is the dependency rule, right? So this rule states that each circle can only depend on the circle inwards to it. So each circle can only depend to the circle inwards. Okay, so this depends with this circle depends with this one depends with this one. Okay, so it creates a clean and decoupled structure, making the code easier to test and maintain. Okay, so this is the clean architecture is usually created with the purpose of maintainability, testability. For it's kind of a used by professionals for building large and maintainable software applications. Okay, so this is the concept. And now let's break down the key components of clean architecture from outer circles inward. Okay, so let's go and break down from outer circles and let's go to the inward. Okay, and presentation and framework. So this is the most outermost one. Okay, which is actually not depending on anything. Okay, so this outermost which is depending on the obviously the UI logic, but this outermost layer of clean architecture is where you put platform specific code. For example, if you are using SwiftUI for making interface in iOS, or Room for database in Android, this is where you handle those technologies. Okay, this layers is platform specific, so you can't typically share code between different platforms here. Okay, so this is it. And finally you have the second one. You have, if you go more inward, let's go and jump to the second layer. In this second layer we have this second layer is called controllers or presenters. So this layer is somewhat like what you find in MVC, model view controller, or MVVM, model view model. So it receives inputs from the outer layer, like user interaction, and passes them to the next layer. So you can use a combination of MVVM and MVC in this layer to help manage user interface interactions. Okay, so and if you move more further, we have use cases or interactors. So this layer defines the actions or use cases that the user can trigger. So the object in the previous layer, controllers or presenters, have access to this use case and can only call into the defined interactions. So this is where a lot of your business logic resides, but you can delegate some of it to your inner layer if needed. Okay, and finally, if you go more further inside, you have this finally the last layer is called the entities. And these entities are the are kind of code, data, and rules, as you can see in the diagram. These are abstract definitions of your data sources, so they may also contain some business logic. Entities represent the core data and the rules of your applications. So in simple terms, clean architecture helps you organize your code into well-defined layers, making it easier to manage and maintain. Okay, so it separates platform-specific code from the core business logic, promoting code reusability and testability. So this pattern is particularly valuable when building large and complex software application. Okay guys, so actually the detailed explanation is I have explained here, so you can go through and read each and every concept here. So yeah, and please if you like this content, please do send me some claps here in the medium, and please also subscribe me guys, so that I will be creating more cool and technical concept. And finally, to summarize the concept here, if you are a beginner, you can start with the MVC, okay, architecture pattern. If you are somehow say like, if you are in some kind of a like if you are creating some kind of a mid level, okay, or like obviously also actually MVVM is a standard architecture pattern used also for the advanced applications, for both for iOS and Android, okay. Then I would actually start suggesting you to start with the model view model, okay, architecture pattern. Start implementing this pattern for your application development, okay. So this is actually the modern application development approach, architectural approach, okay. So I will strongly suggest you to start with this one. MVC has become pretty old, okay, so you can just pretty much ignore that. If you want, you can get some concept from there, but start from the MVVM architecture pattern, okay. And once you have some level of experience, and if you want to create some complex, okay, professional applications, then start learning about clean architecture and implementing this one, because this is pretty professional approach of thinking, like architecture pattern and a way of thinking your application architecture, okay. So it's a very, as the name suggests, it's a very clean architecture diagram. So it's your different components are divided into different layers, so it's very professional. So once you are okay, like you have some experience with MVVM architecture pattern, then you can start also learning more about implementing the clean architecture pattern, okay. So guys, thank you very much, and catch you up in the next lecture.